I'll give you my 6 easy steps to giving a talk, and then I want to open up for like hopefully the last 30 minutes, talk about your experiences and what works for you guys and what doesn't work, and maybe a horrifying experience from the audience. Oh, should I be doing that? Excuse me. That's okay. Yeah. So always be prepared. Do this before you start your talk. Lesson number 1. Okay. So the first step is to choose a topic, and this is really going to start with a brainstorming session. You're going to want to, take an inventory of all the things that you like to talk about, that you like to do in your work life, in your side projects, that sort of thing. You'll also take some time, maybe talk to your coworkers and ask them what they have learned from you, and what they'd actually like to learn from you, because they probably have a little bit more objective view on what you think you may or may not know. Your topic is probably going to fall into one of 2 categories, either something you're passionate about or something that's popular. If it's something you're passionate about, when you talk about it and you know a lot about it, you're going to know the ins and outs. It's going to be a lot more easy, probably a lot easier to talk about, but that's also going to show through in your presenting. So your audience is going to become more engaged if they know that you truly enjoy what it is you're talking about. And then for what's popular, this is great because you end up getting a lot more interest in something in your topic, so you get more audience members to show up at your talk. But there's a little bit of a challenge with this one, because if it's something that's popular, it's probably something that people have presented on before, which means you have to have you have to offer something a little bit different, give it a little edge. But no matter what you do, you want to make sure that you're comfortable with your topic. So even if it's a popular one, you want to be at least a little bit passionate about it. I kind of mentioned this before, but if you are on Twitter or you're blogging or whatever social media it is, you can start giving presentations about the stuff that you're tweeting about or that you're blogging about. You've already built up that fan base. You're already having these conversations with people, real people. They just happen to not be right there next to you. So you can also use that fan base to your advantage, so that if you're tweeting about something that you're really passionate about and you've got this conversation going, you can use that to promote your talk and also get your friends to come and sit in the front row. The last part of choosing your topic is knowing your audience. You want to know if they're going to be paying attention. Are they going to be on their phone tweeting? Are they tweeting about your talk, or are they tweeting about the talk that they wanted to be in instead? Are you giving the lunchtime keynote and everybody's sitting there eating or going and getting their food and no one's really paying attention? And then also know the level of experience that your audience has. So you also want to look at, do you want to present at a local meetup, or do you want to present at a national conference? Chances are you're not going to submit how to write my first Angular web app to a national conference, but you might do that at a local user group. So number 2 is writing a proposal. And not everyone's going to have to do this, because if you're giving a presentation to like the CTO at work or the CEO or whoever it happens to be, you might not have to write a proposal specifically, but chances are you have to explain what it is you're going to do. This is also kind of a good way to figure out, is your idea something that you can actually build a talk on. So the first part of this is writing an abstract. And this is the thing that's going to get you into the conference. You take a paragraph or 2 of what you actually want to present on, and you gear that paragraph towards your audience, not towards the conference organizers, because typically this is going to be the thing that gets printed in the conference program. It's a thing that people are going to look at, that audience members are going to look at to figure out, should I go to this session? but it's also the thing that conference organizers are going to look at to say, is this session something that we want to have at our conference? Make sure that when you write this out that you're including reasons why this topic is going to be valuable to the audience and what they're actually going to take away when they walk out of the room. I looked through some of the minibar sessions, the abstracts and bios, and some of the abstracts were, maybe 1 or 2 sentences or a couple words, and it didn't really entice me to actually go to that session because I had no idea what I was going to get from it if I spent an hour of my day there. The last thing, which is kind of what this slide is saying, is be abstract, but not too abstract. You need to write your abstract in a way that is just vague enough where you can be creative when you're building your talk, but not too vague that people don't want to come. You want to have some specifics in there, some goals. It's not unheard of to be writing an abstract for a conference that you're submitting a proposal to 6 months in advance. And you want to be able to have, things change, so you want to be able to have the opportunity to actually, change your content between that time. Your bio, usually they'll ask for this as well or some form of this, but this is where you need to sell yourself a little bit. Make sure you answer the question of who am I and why am I qualified to be talking about this topic? The third step is to actually build the talk. Again, well, first of all, we're going to start off with telling a story. And one of my most memorable lightning talks that I had attended was in the basement of DevJam, like maybe a year ago. And this guy up here, it's hard to see him, but he's actually hiding behind this little cardboard wall that he brought with him. He's giving a puppet show. And usually lightning talks are, maybe you have 5 slides or maybe you don't have any slides at all, but this guy did a puppet show. And I don't remember what the topic was, but all he brought was this cardboard. And I think he might have had like paper puppets or used his hands or something. But the unique thing about this was he had the entire audience engaged the entire time during his 5 or 7 minutes or whatever it was. Most of the time people were laughing, but people were actually listening to what he had to say. Again, we're going to do a little bit more brainstorming during this process. I typically start out with some form of a mind map. And this is actually one of the 4 or 5 that I did for this talk. And for me, at the mind map stage, I'm really just trying to figure out what are the possible things that I could talk about in this particular talk. And once I've got that, I'm going to kind of pare it down a little bit to an outline. And the outline ends up being what you're actually going to talk about. It might translate into slides, and it might not. At that point, I will run through it at least once or twice through the outline, kind of rehearsing it to practice it for time to make sure I have enough content or not too much. But after that comes slide design. Well, actually, before you do your slide design, if you're doing like a technical presentation or something with a demo, you probably want to focus on that or have a little bit more focus on that than just on your slides. But then moving on to slide design, your slides, they're not your presentation. You are actually the presentation. So your slides just happen to add this extra little dimension, just like that puppet show did. It added some extra dimension to the story that he was trying to tell. I'm not going to go into what is good slide design or not, because it took me like 30 seconds to create this, and it was not very hard for me to do because I'm not a designer. So all I will say, though, is your traditional design skills, web design, print design, they're going to come in handy with creating these slides. Step 4, we want to practice our talk. You want to make sure that you do it out loud. Don't just whisper it to yourself or say it in your head, because you're going to talk a lot faster or a lot slower when you do it in your head. Like I said, you want to make sure you do it out loud. Do it to your dog, do it to your spouse, do it in a mirror. If you want, you can, some people actually record either just audio or video. I've tried that a little bit. I notice that I say and ah and a lot, and so it hasn't really helped me that much, but it's still an option, and it's definitely going to help you as you get into this, no matter how you practice it. Practicing, what it's really going to do, it's going to help you nail down the flow. I think, like I said, when I do my first run through of the outline, I may or may not do it in my head, but I'm trying to figure out, do my slides flow from one idea to the next? Or does my outline flow from one idea to the next? At that point, I might take out a slide, or I might add a new slide in, or rearrange it. It doesn't matter. You're just trying to figure out, am I getting my idea across in a story type of way? Practicing, it's going to help us have a little bit more confidence. No matter what, the inevitable is actually going to happen, or the unexpected is going to happen. We want to be able to have practiced this enough times to be able to improvise a little bit and be able to handle those either unexpected questions or whatever it happens to be. One of the very first presentations I gave was at Twin Cities Code Camp a few years ago. And if you've ever been, they're 75-minute sessions, which is obnoxious, but it's cool because you actually get to dive into code. So I had my slide deck, I had rehearsed, I had a demo going, ready to go. The night before, I went out and bought my display adapter, and I tested it at home, and I got there, and nothing worked. And so I spent the first 15 minutes during the break trying to get my computer hooked up. And then I spent the next 20 minutes, well, I didn't spend the next 20 minutes. One of the conference organizers came and tried to help me out, and he was trying to figure out, was it the adapter, is it my computer, is it the tech, whatever it is, whatever. And then he ended up tracking another one down, but during that 20 minutes, I was freaking out because I started giving my presentation. It was very daunting thinking that I had 75 minutes to go and I had no slides. I couldn't actually look at the slides because he was doing a bunch of stuff on my computer. And I didn't have them up on the board, and I had never printed out my presenter notes or anything like that. So the only reason it actually worked out was because I had practiced. And 20 minutes later, we got another display adapter that worked. But now I've learned from that, and practicing is something that I have to do. I have to do it several times before I get comfortable with what I'm actually going to talk about. But I also keep, usually except for today, I forgot them, presenter notes I keep with me printed out. And I also have 2 display adapters, so that will never, ever, ever happen again. Okay, so step 5 is we want to deliver our presentation. You want to make sure that you go to your room a little bit early, you get comfortable in that room, and make sure that you know exactly where the podium's going to be. I initially set up over here thinking, well, it's going to show on both, but I couldn't get it to work over there. And then I talked to someone, he said it only works over here. And I wanted to be able to actually see both things at the same time. So I ended up moving over here. And then I forgot my microphone. So you want to make sure that you check all that stuff out before you actually get started. Maybe even it's at the beginning of the day before anyone has done any presenting. Or it's the 15 minutes that you get between sessions. Sometimes you'll be, the podium, the microphone, you want to figure out, make sure you know how to use your computer, figuring out like how to get the slides to go where on which monitor or whatever. Then if there's a stage, make sure you know where that is so you don't fall off of it. That's not happened to me before, fortunately. And then calming your nerves. This probably could be a whole talk in itself, but I don't have that much time because I actually want to talk to you guys after this. So being able to, calm yourself down before, during, and maybe even after your whole talk is a really big deal. One thing so I've been doing this for a little while, and I've done some research here and there before, but I did a little bit more this time around because I wanted to actually, talk about giving a presentation and be somewhat authoritative on it. But I learned that our nervous system is actually there to help us cope with stressful situations. So it's here helping me right now. And supposedly that's supposed to calm me down, but whatever. But like I said, practicing, that's a big thing. Being able to know what you're gonna do when something unexpected does happen. Some people will go jogging before their session or the night before or whatever to expend some energy. What else? Oh, I like to make friends with people in the front row or have my friends actually show up. Hi. So it's nice like knowing a few people here. I've talked to these guys before. I guess I haven't met all of you, so that's okay. But it's nice having a few familiar faces in the front row. The other thing that I do, someone taught me this a while back. I don't usually use a remote, but if I'm not using a remote, I carry a pen with me. And I like to think that it grounds me a little bit and I'm not going like this all the time and whatever. I probably am, but it kind of calms me down a little bit, so it works. Additionally, you want to make sure you're not afraid to screw up. I can probably count on like both hands how many times I feel like I've screwed up since I started this, but hopefully you've only noticed maybe once or twice, hopefully. And just know that everybody does it. It happens to everyone. And the people that are here, you guys hopefully you're not here to critique my speaking abilities and my presentation abilities, but you're here to actually learn something. So you're not here to actually look for my flaws, I hope. And then handling the audience. This is kind of a big one because I think a lot of people are afraid of the questions that could come up during a talk. Personally, for me, that's my favorite part, which is why I want to have like 30 minutes to actually talk with you guys. But one suggestion I'll make is when you do get a question or a comment from the audience, and if I don't do this later, call me out on it, is repeat the question, and you're going to do this for 3 reasons. One is to make sure that everybody heard it. Number 2 is to make sure that you understood it correctly. But number 3, which is probably selfish and most important, is to make sure that you have a moment to actually prepare a response to it. Questions. It's entirely possible that you'll get an unruly attendee that wants to know like something totally unrelated to this, to what we're talking about, or just has a question after question after question. And if it's a lecture style type of presentation, that can be very derailing. So you got to know how to handle that. And it's probably a case-by-case situation, but just know that you're the one in control. You're up here, you're on the stage, you're the one with the remote and the microphone, so you can move along the conversation. And to do that, you might say something like, hey, that's a really great question, but I think it might be off topic. Let's talk about it later. Come see me afterwards. Or if it's something you don't want to talk about at all, you move along. The last thing is to sit back and relax and to reflect a little bit. Today, I had the honor of having the very last session of the day. So instead of going and seeing the rest of the presentations, I'm actually going to go have a beer after this, hopefully with you guys. The reflection part of this is you're going to get questions, whether it's at the end or during your presentation. You might get questions after some people have left. And you might get questions or feedback on Twitter, or someone might write a blog post about your talk. You should use all of this information as feedback into the next time that you do your talk. This is actually the first time I've done this one, so I hope you guys say something encouraging or whatever, even if it's not good feedback. I want to hear that too, but because I hope to give this again. And almost always you're going to get good thoughts, and that's good, but sometimes it's nice to have the constructive criticism as well. Okay, so that is my last step of how to give a good talk. I want to talk with you guys about, first of all, are there any questions or any, whether it's related to the 6 steps or anything in general?
I think
yeah.
Time you talked about how you're displayed after.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm kind of curious. There's so many things that can go wrong. For instance, I feel like internet access is definitely not guaranteed.
Oh yeah, that's
So,
yes.
I'm kind of curious, kind of for everybody, what are some of those things that you prepare for and how do you prepare?
Okay, so that is a really good one, internet access. I almost always make sure that I don't even have Wi-Fi turned on right now. Granted, I'm not doing anything where I need it, but I always turn it off. Partly because I don't want to see any notifications pop up, but also because I know I can't rely on it. The conference I was at last week, it was so spotty that I mean, I'm sure people had issues with their presentations because they were relying on it. But you got to find a way to download everything you need beforehand. And if you're practicing, you should have done that already anyways. Display adapters, like I said, I carry 2 of them now. What other things can go wrong? I want to write. Keep talking. I'm trying to write this stuff down, but I got to get this to.
Yeah, I'm actually
Mirror.
doing demos. I basically don't. That I'll get do my screenshots, walk through them or whatever, kind of a thing. That
Yep.
I'm just so paranoid about. I've seen presentations go horribly wrong with dependence on that stuff. So the other one on computers or display adapters. I don't know if I'm overly paranoid there. I've usually got 2 machines with me.
Yep.
So.
One thing about giving demos that I learned, so there's a guy, I think the website is Software is Terrible, and he does the kind of infamous JavaScript and Watch presentation where he's live coding. And I was talking to someone once, and they're like, you realize he fakes that. He doesn't live code. He has it recorded, and he plays a video, and he just has it hooked up where he just doesn't really, I mean, he's kind of up there, kind of making picky pieces. Really and then the only time that really has a problem is if someone, if there's an interruption that he wasn't prepared for. But it just kind of keeps talking, and he's like, my hands. But I mean, that's kind of one way to do it. Maybe if you are going to be at a really big thing, and you don't have to necessarily worry about audience interruptions. And just kind of get.
And you don't have to worry about the Wi-Fi working.
Yeah.
What I do with that is I do like they do on cooking shows, where you demonstrate making it, but then you have the finished one that you just pull out of the oven.
Yeah, right, that one.
That's a good idea, though, or a good question. How do you demo code? Are you actually looking at your IDE and you're scrolling through hundreds of lines of code, or do you take out pieces and display them in presentation?
Yeah.
Any tips for that?
The way I do it is I like mine to be a little bit more interactive, and I don't mind screwing up when I type, when I forget a semicolon or whatever, because it shows that, first of all, that I'm human, but also it shows that, it's real-time feedback in what you're doing. I tend to, when I do a code demo, I'm going to pare it down as much as I possibly can. So I'll get the smallest possible thing, and then I'll get even less. I'll go even less than what I already had. Last week I did a demo on some, it wasn't ginormous, but it was a legacy code base, and there's a 4,000 line file that I had to be scrolling through. And knowing your IDE really, really well and shortcuts is really important to that. So I wasn't wasn't actually scrolling through it. I was actually navigating using the tooling. So being comfortable with the tools that you're using. Yeah.
Also, if you're showing code on the screen, turn your font way up.
Yeah.
Don't use your default font sizes.
If I'm doing a presentation with code, I'll build I think Keynote calls it a mask, but build a box around the code I actually want to talk about, and make the rest of the slide more grayed out. And so the code I want to focus on is in a bright white box where everything else is dim.
Keynote does this?
Yeah, you can do it
Oh.
with a mask.
Okay. I might have to look that up later. I like that idea. Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
to kind of, I did one presentation once where
Yeah.
The only times I've really seen live coding really kind of get weird and crazy was when they were trying to make it too complex of an example, and it just either they got lost or they had to like kind of switch around to, and like the audience got lost, and I mean, but just keep it really, really loose.
Yep. I have a question. Was that it? Oh, go ahead.
Well, with regard to the font size,
Yeah.
sometimes you can't do that because not everything is font. Not everything is,
Yeah.
an icon or something that you to focus on.
Sure.
Windows has built in, if you do Window plus and Window minus to zoom in and out. Imagine Macs have some similar.
Yeah. I know it does. I can never figure out how to do it. Right, but isn't that just on text?
Also the accessibility thing, you can turn on
Yeah.
visual zoom, where.
That's
I
what I
think
was
it's
thinking.
configurable, but you set up a keyboard command with scroll, and it.
Hold down control and you scroll.
Right, I think the control's the default, yeah.
One tool that's available, I've always wanted to get into using, is Zoom It. I know some people just absolutely swear by that.
Okay. So what are you guys, how are you figuring out what you want to talk about? Like, how are you figuring out your topics? For me, this is a really hard problem. I have a lot of interests, and I can never figure out which one is going to be appealing to people. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, you mentioned like practicing in front of someone.
Yeah.
So that's more actually for your benefit than for theirs, obviously. I think in the brainstorming part, which is like really early on in your process, find someone who's pretty close to what that audience is and find out if they think it's totally stupid.
Yeah.
If you're still going to present, you at least know what to expect from the audience.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
The one thing I've found is you want to tell a story.
Yep.
You don't just want to give facts, you want to tell a story. And usually I tell a story about things I've been working on, projects I've been working on the past year or so, or whatever. So, and that generally tends to work out. So.
Okay. Yeah.
I know one guy that likes doing presentations on things that he doesn't know about, but he needs to learn. He learns it so deeply that he's able to present on it. So
that's
his mechanism for really learning.
Yeah, I kind of try and do that as well. I want to learn, whether I know about it already or I want to learn even more about it. Anyone else?
Something I care about?
Yeah.
If there's something I'm ranting to everybody I know, that's probably a sign that I care about it deeply and
Yep.
talk about it in different contexts.
Sure.
Track people in a room and then rant about it.
Yeah. Okay. So do you know where you want to go and present stuff? Like, I mean, user groups and conferences and stuff, but how do you know what conference you want to submit something to, or how are people going about that? Yeah.
I mean, for starting out, free conferences are the best.
Yep.
I think you and I probably both got our start at CodeCamp.
Yep.
Because it's free, and so kind of the thing with that one is like people can leave and like the most they're out is like that day, but people can. I mean, there should be one talk in all of the sessions they go. So even if they leave mine, and hopefully it won't be bad that everyone leaves, as bad as everyone leaves, but like I don't feel like I am really like burdening anyone with
Yep.
with stuff if I give a talk at a free conference. So I really, really appreciated the free conferences that Minneapolis has just to kind of get me used to stuff.
Yep. I think one thing I like about it as well is, while you do submit your session and it's a proposal, chances are you're going to get in anyhow because they're looking for people. I know with Twin Cities Code Camp, I think they don't turn people away. They're actually expanding their conference every time they get more speakers. So it's not actually, there's not like a selection process or anything that I know of. Yeah.
I participate in a number of user groups, and that's very often really hungry for speakers.
Yeah.
So, if you got something to talk about, they're quite willing
Yep.
typically to have you come in.
Yep. And if you don't know which user group to go to, meetup.com is a great place to go. And you search for your topic or whatever it is you're interested in, and there's probably someone out there for you because there's a bajillion of them. Yeah.
Something I've done in the past is when I want to go to a big national conference.
Yeah.
And it's expensive, and I don't have, and I'm in Indy, I don't have
Yep.
You know, if it costs me $3-4 grand
Right.
to go to New York or somewhere, and if I can present there and get a stipend, and sometimes work with organizers or somebody else to get some other things covered, maybe get some free hotel
Yep.
nights or combine it with some perks. I've actually broken even being out of town for a week speaking at a conference, and what I do is I look for a conference where I'm really interested in going, and there is some subject matter areas where I have some expertise that aren't mainstream.
Yep.
Because the industry people are going to come in and do the mainstream stuff.
Yep.
So I got to find something where I can add some value here that somebody else might not think of suggesting.
Yep.
Also, that works very well if if I have peers who are involved with the conference, or I get in touch with people
Yeah.
who are speakers or organizers, so they know who I am.
Sure.
And I'm not just coming in out of the blue.
Right.
It saves me thousands of dollars.
Cool. That's very cool. That's good advice. I know that some conferences are going to pay you. It might not cover your entire travel costs. Some actually have travel scholarships or budgets. But if you can go after like specific sponsors too, that's a really good way of doing that. Yeah.
Might be a good segue, but do you often submit more than one proposal to conferences, or do you tend to pick one, or anybody?
I tend to pick one, but people tell me you should do 3.
Yeah, I actually, that was probably in my presenter notes, but I should have mentioned that. Definitely, if you can, submit a couple of them, or a few, or whatever. Not on the same topic, but on different topics, because you're more likely to get, you have a better chance. It's a little different if you're or if you're trying to talk at a user group. A lot of times, I think, like whoever said it, they're hungry for people to come talk, so they might actually reach out to you first. So, yeah.
Getting on that, actually, I'm going to say the opposite. As a former user group
yeah.
organizer, don't wait for the organizer to ask. Just, we would love it for people
sure.
to come to us and say, hey, I've got this, I'd like to speak about it.
In addition to the meetup.com, at least here in the Twin Cities, you can look at tech.nn.
Yes, that is great. Yeah, if you don't know what that is, and if you're in the tech industry, hopefully, well, you probably are because you're here. But if you don't know what that is, get on either their weekly email list or look at their calendar once a week, because I often find that I see stuff come through on Twitter, or I don't, or I've turned off all my notifications for Meetup, and I miss stuff. Like it'll be 6 o'clock and the JavaScript Meetup has started, or starts in an hour or whatever, and I end up missing it. So definitely take a look at that. Yeah.
One thing that I found pretty interesting is that if you kind of aspire to go to a bigger conference and talk about it, that's not the end. What you should do is, and this helps me out, is you work up to it. So
yeah.
And I've seen friends do this where maybe they come here and they sign up for the open space and they talk about it. Maybe they start out with doing a presentation to their team at work, then kind of evolve up, and it's you listen to say like comedians talk about working towards some of their big shows. It's a lot of going out and doing work, and failure is go out and fail right away.
Yep.
Get over that and not take it too serious, but it's working up helps people learn.
Yep. I wrote down work up to bigger talks, like you said. Lightning talks are one way of doing that. Work, lunch, and learns. Talk about something you're really interested at work with your coworkers. The user group meetings are usually they're a little bit less informal. They might be 20 minutes instead of 50 minutes or 75 minutes. And I had one other idea that I forgot, but we can move on. Did someone over here have a question?
I had a quick comment.
Yeah.
I just did my first presentation this week.
Awesome.
And I found it was, I had to get just kind of, the first thing is to kind of suck it up and do my first one.
Yeah.
Because I kept talking about it but never doing it. So I found this slot, and, you know, I was further along in my talk than anybody else would, because
Sure.
it's a last minute thing. And the other thing is, I had to be careful not to spend too much time on my talk and overthinking it.
Yes.
Because I was dwelling on it a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it was really helpful, like, the day of the talk, I had really no nervousness at all.
That's
You know,
good.
It was my first time.
Yep.
And so I didn't really think about my talk at all. So I worked on the weekend, and then I was
Sure.
on Tuesday.
Okay.
And I didn't think about it at all, and I just
Good.
presented, and I felt a lot more relaxed.
That's good. That doesn't happen to everyone.
Yeah, the third one was.
Maybe you should be up here.
I actually made, so it was kind of, it's a very huge topic that I could spend probably a good 3 hours on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a framework type talk where it's
Yep.
fairly, so I did a kind of intro talk, but I sort of put in all the pieces for the whole thing.
Sure.
So that if I get, you know, questions or whatever, I felt prepared.
That-
I could
that
answer
is where this-
questions that may come up.
Yep.
But still, you know, it's too big of a talk.
Absolutely.
And
That's
I
where my
felt
mind
really well
mapping
prepared there.
comes in handy, is you talk about what's possible to talk about. Go ahead. I was going to say something, but I don't remember.
The charisma and presence come into this?
It does. I didn't really talk a lot about that because I hope that you have that.
I mean, there's been all different speakers to it.
Yeah.
Some have spoken the first time today, some
Yep.
50th time. They're
Yep.
all different kinds of charisma. Not everyone is animated and excited.
Yeah.
But like, what do you have any tips on how people don't feel that they have any, how to kind of tap into it or realize that?
Yep. Yeah. So did everybody hear that? He's asking like how the charisma part of it, the personality, and making sure that, you know, you have some sort of animation to your voice and that you're not completely monotone the whole time. I kind of mentioned it earlier. The first thing is making sure that what you're talking about is something that you're comfortable with, but that you're passionate about it. It might be, like I said, it might be that popular topic, but it has to be something that you actually want to talk about, because otherwise it's just going to be blah, 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 blah. And then people aren't going to listen to you. Practicing is another way. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if you're not feeling particularly charismatic about just like your demeanor, I have witnessed some people leveraging that by going, okay, if somebody were to draw a caricature of me, they'd probably make fun of the fact that I'm dry. You know, like they would go in knowing that they maybe have a dry sense of humor and
Sure.
very calm presence, and so they would joke about themselves.
Yep.
And just kind of cut the air and just break that door open and say, it's fair game, get comfortable, because when the audience feels comfortable, then it's just a much more enjoyable talk for everybody, and having clarity on, like, if you know going into it what the bullet points are at the end of the day, even the most ADHD person in the room is still going to go, okay, but we're going to get to this one topic on bullet point 4. They're still going to be engaged.
Yep. Those are some really good suggestions. What else?
You demonstrated something really important just a few moments ago, which is, especially if someone asks a question that everybody might not have heard, even if they heard it, restating it is a huge thing. And I think it helps out talks an awful lot.
Sure.
And especially if it's stuff, where you've got a microphone and it's being recorded, it's going to help for people much like me that go back afterwards and re-listen to the things, and you get the whole part of the conversation also.
Yeah.
Plus it buys
I think
time.
Totally. Yeah, it does. It lets you figure out what your response is going to be. Just one sec. I forgot what I was going to say. Go ahead. It happens to all of us. Go ahead.
I wanted to step back and ask a question about how do you decide to talk? Because I've got things that I'm passionate about, and I've got things that I know a lot about, but I my number one, I just hate talking in front of people. I hate it. I just get the total fight or flight thing, and usually it'll just be like, this conference is coming up, I really should give a talk, and I check it out.
Yep.
Because I'm just like, oh, they have enough speakers, I can just attend.
I can answer this. I'm a very introverted person, if you don't know me. So I don't talk a lot. And this is like my one way of being able to get out my ideas. And it is, like you just said, the fight or flight mode, I get into that mode and the adrenaline is rushing, and it's kind of the one time that I have to be okay with it because it's gonna help me grow. But the other side of that is I'm in control of this conversation when normally in my life I have less control over conversations because people are usually talking and talking and talking and talking and I can't get a word in. So it's kind of a nice thing to be able, that's how I look at it, is I actually get to say something and have my voice heard.
And it's like, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
No, for me it's just been about like helping people. Like I had to put through, when I learned something and I built something, and I think it's really cool and I want other people to have that. It's like, I'm not doing it for me, I'm doing it for the audience, I'm doing it for the community. And like that is, like if they decide that they don't want to hear that from me, well, okay, you know, it's like to you. But for me, it's just always like, I do it because I want to, I think of like inspiring people, and like that's the best part about talking is when you have people come up after and be inspired to try some new technology that you've shown, or you know, try to do what you've done. And it's made all of the, I don't know, Jenna, if you do this, but like I'm always like maybe like a couple nights before, or the night before, like I wonder if I could cancel.
I have done that once. Well, I didn't actually cancel, but I thought about it, definitely.
Yeah, no, I never cancel either, but it's always like, can I, no, we're gonna do this.
Yep.
It'll be okay. So, but yeah, to just like, you know, you're doing it for other people.
Yep. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to share because I'm an extrovert and I've been speaking for a while.
Yeah.
And it never bothered me, and then one day I got up to go speak, and all of a sudden, like, my heart started pounding, I was like, sweating profusely, and I had this like, oh my god, like what's happening? Like there's so many people staring at me, and like I never did anxiety while speaking before, which was really difficult for me. And not that I'm like a drug pusher, but.
This is being videotaped.
But a friend told me, because I came back and I was kind of like traumatized about the whole situation. And she said that there's like this, it's called like propanol, like speaker's pill or something. And it like helps your heart, because my heart was racing so
Yeah.
quickly, I like felt like I couldn't catch my breath. And so if anyone like has extreme anxiety about public speaking, it doesn't take it away like terribly, but it made it so at least my heart didn't feel like
On that same note, I know someone who takes a shot before he actually gives a presentation, so.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys write that one down.
Talk about that.
Okay, what else? Any other topics or questions or whatever? Yeah.
I just want to follow up with the idea of helping other people.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to practice, because I used, on the Myers-Briggs type indicator, I was an introvert when I was young. I do this now as an extrovert.
Yep.
But the way I learned it was through teaching.
Sure.
I started teaching night colleges just for fun because I wanted to share what I knew. And you're focusing on students, you're focusing on the other people. And when you do it on a regular basis, it could be user groups or community education, where you learn to focus on the other people, and it'll just turn on your natural talents to deliver information to other people. So that's a good way to practice, where you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to get up and give a speech.
Yeah.
No, I'm just talking to people and helping them, telling them what I know.
That's actually why I like this conversational style better, is I'm so much more comfortable having this conversation than I am just parroting stuff back to you. So, yeah.
So just along the lines of just, you know, mental tools and techniques that can help people, as you were saying, teach, or help you kind of unwind, or knowing that you're doing something for use in the audience. I just gave a talk just recently this week, and when I talk, like I hate talking about myself, but it had to be something, the lecture was on like my life, creative, like what are my pursuits. And so I had to imagine that I was talking about someone else's life, or maybe, you know, presenting someone else's data, so that I didn't have to feel so personally about it when I was up there, like saying sort of like personal or intimate information. And I was just like, I'm just a vehicle that presented this information, and I just tried to pretend it wasn't about me. So I don't know, just like any.
I like that. Yep. Yeah.
That's perfect. My wife and I are very different. She does not but. Just like, and this sounds really silly and it sounds juvenile, but like, if you sit right in front of the presenter, if that's something that is a fear of yours, is presenting, if you always sit right in front of them, you get that weird feeling because you're right in front of it. It starts to erode away.
Yeah.
Because you realize that you're only inches difference than what they're doing at the moment. So that helps a lot.
I like that.
Because you can't hide, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
10 inches from their breath.
Hopefully I brushed my teeth this morning. Yeah.
How do you force interactivity?
The interactivity? I've been lucky in that people just happen to like actually want to talk about things. I do a lot of my presentations either this way or make sure that people are asking questions. I start out that way by encouraging it, but I usually put it in my abstract as well to make sure that you better come and participate. Yeah.
I've done two things to this point. One is come early and talk to people, get to know them before, because then that way I get their name and I can call on them. And then the second thing is to just pick on people. And, you know, you can kind of tell by people's body language too. And it's actually, if people start to kind of check out, calling on them is a good way to pull
right.
other people in as well. So the more comfortable you get, the more you can, you know, things kind of slow down a little bit, and then you can use those body language cues.
Yep, I like
that. You can also build questions into your presentation. Some of the best presentations I've seen or given end with 3 unanswered questions, like that forms the springboard for conversation to happen outside of the presentation.
Yeah.
I know we're close to time.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Have like do's and don'ts tips for submissions or anybody when you're submitting, when you're writing that proposal?
I personally don't. I'll tweet out the slide deck later, and I have a link to a whole bunch of resources, and there's actually one in there on proposals, and there's 2 in there. One of them is a do's and don'ts, so it's pretty good. I can't remember what's on it, but anyone else have anything? Yeah.
I just want to give a quick point because I've been kind of going through this journey of not public speaking at all, and now for my job I tend to do it more and more.
Yeah.
So one aspect is like the spider web effect. When you're outside walking and you walk into a spider web, you freak out because you know there's probably a spider on you now, and it could bite you and you might die, you know, and all that stuff. But then in the future, when you see a spider web, just walk into it. And because most likely in Minnesota you're not gonna die because that spider's probably not poisonous. So just walk into the spider web until eventually you're gonna walk into a spider web accidentally and it won't bother you because you just forced yourself. And then the second point, a tip, because I do get nervous when I'm speaking publicly sometimes and I'm trying to get over that, is before you do the talk about the talk as if it had happened already. So the day before when you're practicing, just talk to yourself or to someone and say, man, do you remember when I gave that incredibly, just very interesting talk and I made that great comment? Everyone was just really excited about it and they thought it was really engaging, whatever. And then you can repeat that process right before and it will totally center you and you'll be able to it'll trick your brain into thinking you already did a great job and you're going to go out and
do a great job, yeah. That's good, visualization. Yeah, one last thing and then I think we got to go get beer.
And the one thing to remember is you will crash and burn.
Yes.
So when you fall off the horse, the important thing is to get
or
back
the
in
stage
saddle immediately.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
By the next conference you can as soon as possible get back in there.
Or the same talk. Like if you totally screw up during the first half, fix it in the last half. People are there to hear what you have to say. So, all right. Like I said, I'm on Twitter, Jenna Pedersen. If you have any questions or comments or feedback, I'd love to hear it. And thank you for coming. I appreciate it.